Hello, and welcome to Beginning Programmer, the YouTube channel. And this time we're going to be talking about compiling and running Java from the command line. So a few days ago, I was trying to compile and run a program from the command line, and I was having a hard time. And there were some things that I didn't understand. Even though I've worked with Java for some time, it was still a challenge running it from the command line. Here's some things that I discovered. Now, you can get all this documentation from the Oracle website, and you have to kind of dig around, and you can get them from Stack Overflow. But I decided that since it was really sort of a challenge to find the answer, that I would make a video showing you exactly how to do that, how to compile and run Java from the command line. So let's get started. So let's just say that you have a program, and we have a very simple program here called foo, and we have the main, and this is syntactically correct. So let's say that we wanted to compile this program, and it's in the package com.bp.util, and the class name is foo. We just have a main method, and we want to save it and compile it and then run it. So one of the first things we want to do is save this file, right? So it's already saved, but let me just show you where I'm saving it. So I'm going to save my program in dev sandbox and just save it there. So, and I don't want to save it as text document. I want to save it as all files, which you see it's already there. So I just replace it and I save the program. Now, first thing I want to do is go ahead and run my program. And what I want to do is I want to compile it. So let's assume that I already installed the JDK. You're going to need to install the JDK before you can run this. So you go ahead and compile it. And the way you compile it is just say Java and then give it the name of the Java file. And that should compile it. So that compiles it, and now we can see that it creates a foo.class file. But that file won't run. If I was to run Java foo, it won't run. It says cannot run or load main. So what I have to do is I have to call it by its full name. But even if I call it by its full name like this, the full name being the package name com.bp.util, that still won't be sufficient, because if I say com.bp.util.foo, it still will not run. Oh, okay, it will run, and that's because I already have it in its location. So let me go ahead and remove it from the location. Let's go back to sandbox. If I try to run the class from here and I say Java and I run the same command, it will not run even though it's there. And the reason for that is because it doesn't necessarily run your file from where it's located. So what you have to do is you have to actually run it from the location intended. The way that Java works with packages, you have to create folders and you have to set your class path. Now in my case, I've already set the class path, so I can easily call echo class path, and you can see what my class path says. Okay, so I have all these things in my class path, and one of them, the last one, the very final one, cd sandbox bin. So you notice that I already have bin in my class path. But if I didn't have bin in my class path, and I think that I said it earlier, one way you can do it is you can set your class path variable inside of control panel. So if you go to control panel and you go to system and then advanced settings, environment variables, and you notice I have the class path there. Now I can go ahead and edit the class path, and you notice that I don't necessarily have the class path here. The class path that you saw earlier is not here. So what happened? Well, what I did, I set it in the command line earlier. So I shut down my command line, and you're going to see what happens now. If I have my command line open, and it's a little big, so let me reduce the size and move it over. So I have my command line here, and so I have to change my directory to my dev sandbox. Okay, if I echo my class path right now, you're going to see that it's not there. You notice that my class path is not there. So if I was to try to run right now, if I try to run foo, and I have to call it by its full name, it should not run. It could not find or load main file. And that's because it's not set in my class path. Now I can go and edit my environment variable and set the bin to that location, or I can set it also from the command line. So I can say, for example, set class path equals class path and then C and then div sandbox bin, and that's gonna add the bin to my sandbox. Now if I run Java, if I run the same command that I ran a minute ago, it should run my program. Okay, it didn't run it. Could not find com bp.util. Let me echo the class path. Okay, sandbox bin. It's there, but it's not running my program. And why isn't it running my program? Well, my class is not there. So in order for it to run, I have to have the class there. So I would have to copy full class into that path. And then I can run it. But before that, let me go ahead and set the class path. Let me shut down my command line again. Now that we have the class, let's run the command line again. Let's go ahead and navigate to that. You notice the class is there. So I have the command line, and so I can say cd, and before we do that, we can just echo the class path. And you notice my class path to my cdev is not there. So I'm going to go ahead and try to navigate to dev sandbox. And since my class path is not there, my class is not going to run. So when I say Java com.bp.util.foo, it tells me it cannot load it. And that's because my class path is not set, so I have to set my class path. And what this is doing, the reason I'm using the variable class path is because I'm just appending to class path. So it's like saying class path equals whatever's already in class path plus additionally this class path. So it would be c dev sandbox bin. So now I should be able to run it because my class is there. So I should be able to just say Java, and then I have to call it by its full name, and it should run. And you see that it runs in this hello world. Now, one thing you may notice about this is that I set my class path to this bin. So what's going on here? It's way down deep in the heart of this, really deeply nested, and you notice that it's sandbox bin. But I only register this. See, what Java expects there to be folders for each one of these paths in the package. So in order for it to run, I have to have bin com bp.util. It would not be sufficient for me to drop this foo inside bin. It's not going to work because it's going to look for it in that path unless I changed it. Now, for example, if I change my class path, if I change this, then it would look, even though it's in here, it's not going to find it. So it expects this path. And that's the key thing about it, is that whatever path you add to it, it expects there to be packages. So you're only registering the root of the class path, and you're setting those packages. There may be other reasons why your application does not work, And that could be because when you install the JDK, maybe you don't have the JDK in your path variable. So that's another thing you have to be careful. So if you go to control panel, I think, don't I have control? I have control panel already. So let's back up here. If I go to control panel, go back to system, and go to advanced settings and environment variables, you'll notice the path here, and this path is separated by semicolons, but except that in Windows 10 it separates it neatly for you, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you have Windows 7 or something, then you would have to copy that value out, edit it, and then separate them yourself. But in this case, you notice that my JDK is part of my path, and that's how it knows where to go to find the Java file in the Java compiler, because I have this in my path. So that's how it knows to find it. You also notice that I have my class path set here, and when you look at this, I could just as easily add that additional path to my class path, and then I won't have to set it every time in the command line. And if you had a program that you were running where you depended on classes running independently, then that's what you would do. You would add those class paths to an environment variable. In Linux, it may be different the way you set it. This is really for Windows, so if you do it in Linux, it still has to follow the same convention, though. It's still going to look for those folders in that order, except Linux and Unix are a little bit different. So you'll have to set that up a different way, and you'll have to look into how to set the class path in Linux and Unix. But that's really it. That's all I wanted to cover. Just if you wanted to compile Java just right from an editor without having an IDE, just remember this package, you have to register wherever the root is, and you notice com here, BP here, and util, those are all folders, and then finally your class is in there. And the other thing about it is that when you call the class to run it, you have to call it by its full name. I couldn't just say, for example, I couldn't just say Java foo. Yeah, that will not work. So there it is. And hopefully this helps you. If it does, go ahead and like the video. If you have any comments or questions, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.